So in this video, we're going to be going over what are the best settings for Battlefield 2042, the beta. Now, in this video, we're going to cover kind of your display settings. We're also going to be covering controller settings as well, because that is what I play on. I play controller on PC, and I do feel like it's going to be important for some people to see certain settings that I have. Now, if you enjoy this video and you want to see more content like this for Battlefield 2042, don't forget to subscribe as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. And click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. We do post extra content over there as well. And we do post Warzone content if you do want to check that out too. But like I said, this video is all about the settings. Now, we're going to quickly run through pretty much every setting besides keyboard and mouse, because I don't really play with that. I know, bit of a surprise, but let's quickly get into this now. So we've got invert vertical look. I don't really need to speak too much on this, because unless you have some kind of disability or something like that, where you need this setting, I would highly recommend having this all just switch to off, of course, because it's gonna be pretty annoying. Even with the aircraft one, if you're used to it, I'd still turn it off because I just feel like it's so annoying. You don't really need this, like I said, unless you have kind of some disability. Camera shake, you want to turn that off, because in a competitive setting, which is what I'm talking about here, you don't really need camera shake in your game. Even though it will make it feel a bit more immersive, you don't really need it. Crossplay and all that kind of stuff is going to be personal preference now. And communication is also going to be personal preference as well, so we don't need to talk too much about that. When it comes to the screen setup quickly, you do want to make sure you have it switched to full screen. Set your resolution to your display resolution. Also set your refresh rate as well. And then make sure you switch it back to borderless, which is the best in my opinion. The reason why it's the best, it doesn't really give you any frame rate boosts or anything like that, but what it is going to do, allow you to tab in and out your game very easily, so that is going to be quite handy. When it comes to FOV, we'll just whack that straight up, because let's be completely honest, everyone wants to max FOV, especially in a competitive FPS. ADS field of view, I would have that set on. It's going to give you the ADS field of view, which is essentially giving you field of view whilst you're ADS'd. Surprise, surprise, right? But basically, it's just going to allow you to see more when you're ADS. Now, if you struggle to see targets at a long distance, then of course you could turn this off. And what this will do is essentially give you ADS the view as if you kind of didn't have your field of view all the way up. So hopefully that made a bit of sense, but basically I would recommend having this on, right? Brightness I have set to 60. I think it's kind of the best setting to kind of get a good balance without using any filters like NVIDIA filters and all that kind of stuff. And then you also get the kind of shadows brightened up a little bit, but you don't get all the colors washed out. High dynamic range, I'd have that turned on. It is going to impact your performance, of course, because it does make your game look a lot better, but it's good for color accuracy. Motion blur, you want off. All this stuff after motion blur, you want off. Again, it's going to make your game look more Battlefield, which if that's what you want, then fair enough. But if you want to be competitive, you don't want any extra stuff on your screen, then turn all this off, because it is going to basically kind of add extra layers in front of your screen, which is what you don't really need. Graphic settings, I have set this set to custom. This is really going to come down to the performance of your PC and kind of the hardware you have. I'm running a 3070 graphics card at the moment, so I have most of this set to either high, medium, 1 or 2 settings set to ultra. I mainly kind of stick to the highs, to be honest. I feel like my computer runs fine with highs. So highs to mediums. If it's not so important, things like lighting quality, effects quality, that kind of thing isn't like super important in a competitive multiplayer game. Like terrain quality isn't really that important either. You do want to have it set high enough to where you can see targets behind the terrain and all that kind of stuff. So just make sure you don't have it set like way too low where you can struggle to see targets. So that is what I would recommend for the settings. They are right here. So I've got texture quality high, texture filtering high, lighting quality medium, effects quality medium, post-processing is high, mesh quality is ultra, and that is because this is going to be kind of what your characters and stuff are made from, so you do want to make sure you can see those as clear as possible. Terrain quality set to medium, like I said, it's not that important. Overgrowth medium, anti-aliasing is turned to high as well, because I think that is important. Ambient inclusion is set to HBAO. Now, one thing I would like them to do in the game is kind of give you an explanation of what it does a little bit better, but they don't really have that here. And I want to kind of focus a bit more on that when it comes to the kind of controller settings as well, but we'll get into that in a second. When it comes to advanced dynamic resolution, I have this set to off. Basically, this scales your resolution depending on what kind of frame rate you want to choose. I don't really think this is kind of the best way to do that. Future frame rendering, I do recommend having this on though, because it will reduce the amount of kind of lag or frame skipping or whatever it is that's going to happen in your game. So just make sure you have this turned on. VSync I have set to off because I've set my frame rate and refresh rate specifically, but you can turn this on if you're getting screen tearing as well. And high fidelity objects, basically this is going to how kind of your render distance is essentially. So you want to make sure this is set to high or ultra, because it will render the highest resolution it can for objects at kind of further away distances. So it's important you have that, again, like I said, in a competitive multiplayer, and especially because you have your FOV turned all the way up as well. You're not going to get like that super insane narrow kind of field of view to see targets. Now, HUD in general, I kind of have this set to default. I just have camera shake turned down. Everything else is exactly the same. There's no really need to change this, to be fair. Crosshairs, I have the thickness set a little bit thinner than usual, but everything else other than that is pretty much the same as the standard here. Then minimap, again, minimap background opacity I've set to 10, rotate when you rotate essentially. So I do have that set turned on, just makes it a lot easier to ping things and kind of give call outs. HUD icons, I have this set to 100 as well. I think that's just kind of standard. You don't really need to change that. Audio, I do have the music audio. I will have that turned all the way down when I'm playing the game. You don't need that when you're in the actual game. Now, Battlefield is known for its good music and all that kind of stuff, but like I said, when you're in the game and you're playing, you just want to make sure you can hear the announcers, you can hear the sound effects. That's the most important stuff. Then I have 3D headphones, which I found to be the best on the Astro headset I'm using. Now you can play around with this, choose whatever you want. Audio, I feel like people have a personal preference for, but the ones I found that work the best for me is the 3D headphones at the moment. Audio and background I have turned off. Hit indicator, I can't even speak now, set to default. And in-world music I have turned off as well. Again, you don't need it. Now, controller settings. Now, here is where things get a little bit weird. Now, I haven't changed too much here. I have the set to default. Now, the reason why I have set all this to default is because realistically, they should give you some kind of way to kind of change this all, which they don't. And it should show you like here, like what it is exactly you are changing. So on foot sticks, if you switch this to southpaw, what does that mean? Do you know what I mean? So basically, they haven't done that. So most of this is default anyway, because the default buttons are going to be pretty much the most straightforward ones. When it comes to the on-foot settings, pretty much everything here is set to default more or less. The only thing I've changed is the ADS field of view I have set to turned on again. And I have also set the field of view to the highest possible. Soldier sprint I have set to hold, because I feel like holding the left analog stick's going to be a lot easier if you want to sprint. The other ones that I've changed here, the rest is all default by the way. The other ones I've changed here is turning off the parachute deploy. You want to be able to deploy your parachute when you want, not when the game wants. The only issue with that is if you're AFK, you will splat, so that is the problem. Quick throw grenades are off, reload hints are on. You can turn these off, it's kind of just personal preference really. And then everything else after this, I've just set my zoom sensitivity for the kind of when you're ADSing and the different zoom levels of your weapon. So I do recommend having everything below a 2.5x, just kind of set a little bit lower just to make sure you're very accurate with it. When you get a bit higher, I like to have a higher kind of sensitivity, and that's so you can snipe a little bit easier, all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of important to know kind of what the differences are, but this is really down to personal preference. If you want something to try out, definitely try out my settings here. I think they will work out pretty well for most people. Invert vertical look again, you want off. Vibration for controllers, you want off. Vehicle stuff, I have this set all to standard right now. I do want to get a better feel for the game to see what I can fine tune. Now, controller tuning, I've not changed anything here besides turn vibration off. This is all about your dead zone and things like that, so this is going to be down to kind of the controller you're using and all that kind of thing. So this is definitely, I can't give you kind of advice on this one. You need to know what the kind of dead zone is on your controller here, so make sure you kind of try and figure that out and test that in game, and then set these accordingly. Mouse and keyboard, I cannot give you any advice on because I don't play on it. Accessibility is going to really come down to if you do need any accessibility features. So personally, I like to play it on the Deuteranopia colorblind setting, and that is just because I feel like it's a lot more vibrant and it makes it a lot easier to see things. I'm not colorblind though, but it just does help, so I do recommend having that there. Menu narration, you can have that set to on, especially if you have any sort of disability, it will help a lot. Motion blur, you want that off. Camera shake amount, again, you want that off again. Vibration, you want that off again. Reload hints, you can have that on. Hints for controls, you can have that on as well if you need it. Controls here now, soldier sprint, like I said, I have that set to hold. Soldier weapon zoom is hold. Steady scope is on. And vehicle weapon zoom is set to hold as well. You can double tap to sprint forward if you really wanted to as well. Onto the keybind setting now. What you want to do is there's one specific setting you have to change if you're a controller player playing on any kind of console. If you could change these settings, you need to make sure you could change this. Now, these initial settings here are just basically to do with screenshotting, matchmaking, all that kind of stuff. If you want to change all that, you absolutely can. I have this set to default, by the way. But if you're on a controller, like I said, and you don't have specific keybind set, you have to do it, and it's this specific setting right here. So make sure you go to controller, go to soldier, go all the way down until you find this setting which says modify weapon attachments. And what you want to do is you want to click on that and you want to press the up D-pad. Now once you've done that and press the up D-pad, you then want to go and you want to go to the next setting, which is throw grenade, and you want to press L1 or LB, whatever it is on your specific controller, whether it's Xbox or PlayStation, is the one that you usually throw grenades with, and you want to swap them round. And that is to change the weapons plus system with throwing grenades, because you're more likely to be throwing grenades mid-gunfight than you are to be modifying your weapon attachments. You don't really want to be doing that halfway through a gunfight. So that is going to be kind of one of the most important settings, to be completely honest, right now. And then that is it. Now, if you do want to modify the rest, I highly recommend just leaving the rest pretty much default. You don't really need to do that. The weapons plus system is really important that you do change. But like I said, the rest I have set to standard and default. If I get a bit more game time in and I find a couple more settings that might be useful, then I will make a follow-up video to this one. But if you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we try to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. And thank you very much for watching.